Okay. All right. That thing, you never can tell. I do my best to make sure that, every time we start these shows that it starts smoothly. But YouTube has this thing, and you just push start and you think, hey, it's going to work, but it doesn't work. So, welcome. Once again, we're at the specialist meeting, and it's good to be forward, as I always say, because we've obviously spent a few weeks without having the meeting. And this has been due in large part to our camera system needing to be replaced, as I explained to everyone. So those cameras finally came in. We're in Costa Rica, so it can take a bit of time, and then it's got to go through customs and et cetera, et cetera. So, I've been utilizing that time, of course, to put out some more information. And I'm sure people have checked the YouTube channel, and I've done some rather recent things on YouTube that I plan on continuing in the future. So let me just check. Okay, so it looks like we're transmitting. Everything is clear. All right, so I'm going to go right into this. And if anyone has any audio problems, you may want to just reboot your stream, because sometimes it gets a little laggy and then you need to reboot it. But other than that, it should be coming through clear. I will wait for one more audio check, though, just to make sure. So for those that are listening, if you can give a confirmation that you're hearing us live and clear, then that will be great, because then I can go ahead and get started. So I'm going to wait for that. Wait for it. Waiting for it. Again, anyone who's listening, if you can let me know. Actually, I can probably hear it from here. Let me just check it. Just want to make sure that, we're. Okay, there it is. Okay, so I can hear it. All right, so great. So we're going. All right, so we're running. Whew. So today's meeting is actually scheduled for a little bit over an hour. Turn that down. A little bit over an hour, and the whole goal is to get you the information that you need. We're going to answer some questions today that I've seen occurring, and some people sent me some questions, and that's kind of related to the Spiritech specialist program. So I'm going to get those questions answered today, and then I'm going to let everyone go about their merry Sunday, because obviously this is a good time to spend with your family and meditation, reading, building your knowledge, sharing with others, etc. So I'm not going to keep you very long today. The first thing that I want to talk about, very briefly, because, I think that the Spiritech Specialist program has gotten somewhat of mixed reviews, and it's definitely because we're mixing two different components. Like, it seems to be when you start talking about being able to sustain yourself, being able to make money, and being able to work even in a field that involves holistic and wellness, things of a holistic and wellness nature, it seems that many people still have an issue with the whole idea with money and spirituality. So what I do want to say, though, is just like in the beginning when I had an issue with the whole religious structure and I started bringing out information that was revealing, what that system was really about, it's the same thing that I feel like goes on in the employment system, that obviously the slave-based mentality that goes on in the U.S. with its systems is all pervading. It happens at the job. You go in at 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, or whenever. You dedicate 8-9 hours, maybe even more. And then, of course, you even take work home. And then in those extents, you get this, what they say income. It should be actually outcome, as I talked about, because if you work for something, you should receive something back. But they tell you, you're going to get this income. So then you get this income back. And it's because it's also money, and money technically doesn't have a real value beyond the value that we give it, then we actually have exchanged our energy for this service that we're doing for another person. And what I feel in that whole transaction, that it can be very predatory, because after a while with a job, they're hiring you for something that you already know how to do. So the potential for you to be able to learn something new is virtually minuscule. So what we're really doing is we're pioneering a whole new way that a person comes into making the ends meet for themselves. And it involves not only just selling a product or representing a product, it also involves learning something, spiritual, mental, and physical expansion. And why some of the things may have a premium that we do offer, a lot of the things that we've offered for years don't have a premium, meaning that people can go get knowledge, they can go get expansion, and then they can choose if they want to get involved in certain things that will equal more expansion for them, but that's their choice. So what we've designed then is a hybrid of a place that can actually assist you in your monetary needs, but also assist you in your physical, mental, and spiritual needs. So every time that you show up, you actually get
complete fulfillment of both of those. So I think or all three of those. So I think that's very important to implement, because it also means that when you're spending your time assisting others or actually rendering assistance and doing something in the day that you may call a job, you're also learning something in that engagement, and you're also gaining something. And we also talked about how this transcends just the monetary level, that it also gets involved in your karmic and dharmic system, meaning that check and balance system that you have to have with yourself. I call it reaping what you sow, that every month, you participate in these activities, and then during the full moon time, that's when you now reap what you've sown for those activities that you've engaged in through the month. So I believe that the system that has been set up with Spiritech specialists allows you to engage in things day after day that assist others, so that way you start really seeing the success on multiple levels, not just in your pocketbook. So that's the first thing that I really wanted to bring forth today about, those who are wondering why we launched this event and this effort to begin to employ people and allow them to learn more about the body and about elements and how they can assist others. The next thing is that I wanted to talk about how today what we're going to do is we're going to answer any questions that are pertaining to being a Spiritech specialist. And there will be a time in which you can enter your question in the chat box. We do want to keep it, just related to what goes on as a Spiritech specialist, or anything that pertains to that. If there's something that you need to know that'll allow you to assist people more or allow us to assist you better, then at the specific time, please enter your question in the chat box and we can go ahead and get that question answered. That is the purpose of these meetings. And in fact, there is some bulletins and things that I do want to talk about, but the primary service of this particular meeting is you, I want to serve you in allowing your success to be evident, and for you to actually learn the ways to really navigate this world, because especially with this last lunar cycle, I felt like that it was extremely strong, especially for people who were conscious. Like we always talk about that people who have that kind of low vibration, dense Groundhog's Day, I'm doing the same thing every day kind of frequency, they tend to not notice the turbulence that's going on in their life, because it's always turbulence. There's always something going on. But for those who have kind of leveled the path for their feet and kind of cleared up things for themselves, they notice that during these full moon cycles that other people's energy intensifies, and it gets stronger and stronger as we go through these cycles. So I feel like, and I'm going to talk about this during the end of the message, that there is a great need for us to, put the pedal to the metal and start developing real structures that are going to allow us all to begin to not just shield ourselves from that kind of energy, but create somewhat of a sanctum that energy is not present, so we can stay in harmonic balance. And the only thing that's really required is for each person to be responsible for the energy that they're bringing into the group. And with that, we create a perfect harmony where where our group is continuously expanding and not actually getting our energy drained and energy sucked and getting into arguments and quarrels and all the things that are really designed around life these days. And, I'm going to even get into that just a little bit today. The next thing that I want to talk about is that obviously, there are other affiliate programs out there, and I'm sure many of the people that are here on the line may have not even looked into affiliate programs and those type of things, and this is the first time that they've ever gotten involved in something like that. And first of all, I wanted to commend you and thank you for taking this time for yourself and also to assist us in our expansion. So that's a big thing. But I also want to talk about, what's going on out there with other affiliate programs, because today I got an opportunity, or actually not today, but yesterday and the day before, I got an opportunity to look really deep into some of the other affiliate programs to see if possibly we can enhance our affiliate program, or, there was something that we're not doing. I'm always going to investigate what's going on out there to see if we can do something better. And what I found, though, is that we're actually doing so much more than other affiliate networks in regards to commissions. Like I saw commissions at 1%, 2%, 3%, which, to me is almost like highway robbery. And you get these companies like Zowie, and there's a lot of them, and they sell these carbonized products and products that don't really actually help the person. But there's this whole thing that they get going where they're like, oh, it's really going to help you. And, oh, they got the smiles on their face on the front of the magazine. Oh, I made $1 million in 1 month. So it's really, these affiliate networks are tied into selling a false idea of success. And what I did want to say is the difference in Spiritech specialists is not only do we train you to do things with your own body and also to assist others, we also carry an amazing line of products that we feel like is the cream of the cream when it comes to making that level of transformation that you need in your life and allowing others to do the same thing. So one of the main things that I really want to talk about during this meeting is that remember that the commissions that we do offer are actually really high compared to other specialist programs. I actually paid out commissions today because it is the first. So I saw that many people have actually been doing very well. So this should be encouragement for those that haven't actually gotten into it and still kind of waiting to see what kind of, angle they're going to really get into it on and, how it's really going to work for them. This is encouragement to you to let you know that, just if you start posting the link on your social media, posting your affiliate link, you'd be surprised to how many people actually begin to go to that link and start to get involved in things that are going to make their lives better. And then, of course, you'll be compensated for that. So this is, official that this is running. It works. People are experiencing levels of success already. And when it comes to what's going on beside this, as far as affiliate networks, pound for pound, Spiritech Specialist is doing excellent. And we also got a chance to really buff out the directory. I want to say thanks to Helder for that. But we went and got a lot of the people that had applied and had involved themselves with the network maybe even years ago. I think the specialist program has been up now for about 2 years. So we got a chance to get everyone into the directory, into the new site. So you can go check out that directory and you can see just how many of us there really is. There's actually, from last time I checked, about 500 and some odd specialists in the system, even though a large percentage of those specialists are not active yet. But it just shows that we're actually in the launch of something that is going to be very expansive. So I expect within the next, I use short periods of time. So we'll say 1 to 3 years that Spiritech Specialist is going to be something that's very powerful and very useful for others to begin to make that transition from, that regular job and, that vampiric nature of what goes on in the reality into something that's not only going to expand their knowledge, but also connect them with others. And that's the other thing about this is that they say if you're looking for a book, go to the library. Or, if you're looking for a librarian or you're looking for someone who likes to read, you go to the library. So if you're looking for something specific, then you go to the places where that is. So if you're looking to link up with more conscious people or people who really want to do something for themselves, not just the ones that just want to talk about it all the time, then this is a really good opportunity to also link up with other people because that's who's involved here. So you can see those in the chat room even today have an interest in expanding themselves. And some may not even be here directly for the specialist meeting, but to get the knowledge and the information of helping their body and seeing what's going on in the reality, etc. So as you can see, it's not just one thing. So that's really what I wanted to tell those who have been the critics lately, that this is not just about making money. This is actually about creating a family and also learning the karmic and dharmic systems and doing things in our life that are going to allow us to benefit from those interactions. So the next thing is that I wanted to talk very briefly about paper posts, because that's a new thing that we just recently launched and it's rather amazing. And I don't see that many people participating in it. And I can actually attest to that's probably because people don't know exactly what it really is about and how to get involved. And what paper post is that last time we had a specialist meeting, I talked about if for those who have the ability to write posts, that they could now start writing posts. If they, they need some literary skills, they can now start writing posts. And if those posts are on the level, then we will put those posts onto the Secret Energy site. And then also if the post is, really doing its thing, then we'll share the post throughout our social networks. And then you can embed your sub-IDs and which link directly to products and also give you commissions for those products. And then anyone who reads that post that likes what's being presented will actually click through and then you'll get credit for that. And so this is a very unique opportunity because we spent years really growing our network and our connection with others. And it's a very difficult thing because, the web is huge. But we also have a desire to keep pushing out more content every single day. Like if you look at sites like Collective Evolution, I mean, they're putting in new posts at least 6 to 7 times a day. So that's any media network or any social network needs to have that much content. And of course, if I spend all day, just writing content, then I can do little else than that. So I came up with paper posts as somewhat of a symbiotic relationship between those who have some literary skills and the platform, because we can get you the attention that you need, not only to what you write, but also connecting that with how you're able to, go throughout the day and throughout the night, making money. So, we try to skate around these terms, but let's just face it, the life really requires that we find some level of being able to monetize, but why not do that with assisting others? So remember, the cure is always bundled with the poison, and in every aspect, many people have seen the whole financial thing as an extreme Achilles heel to consciousness, but there always means that there is a percentage of that whole idealism that actually is a solution for something. And I believe personally that if we can transfer more people over to allowing their sustenance to come from them helping others, then we're not dealing with this whole predatorial nature of the reality to where someone is actually trying to sell you something that's not even going to assist you, and it's only going to assist them monetarily, but it's also going to put them into a bad karmic system, which most people don't care about. So this is kind of cleaning things up on multiple levels. I was laughing about it because it's kind of like the true money laundering. You're actually cleaning the negative energy and stuff that's placed on the money from the different transactions, and you're cleaning that up by allowing that whole aura around how you're making your living, and also how people are getting a response from you as something that's positive, or what I would say is harmonic. So think about the paper post. And the other thing is that some people, they may not be the greatest writers, and that's okay, because this doesn't really require that you have this extreme writing skill and you know how to, really put the pen down on the paper. It just requires that you know how to do really good research, because let's say, for instance, if you're going to go research Tibetan medicine, if you're going to go research monatomics, there's a plethora of information that's available on the internet. So what it just requires you to do is go to the internet and then start to really look into collecting information that's really useful for others. Obviously, you're going to put your own spin on it and you're going to add your own knowledge. But then once you're done, you can comprise a really unique post. And then obviously you can add links to those products that you're speaking of. And then you can submit that to us, and then Kiera will look over it and then we'll submit it for approval. So that's something that you can think of doing even in your spare time, or if you already like to write. This is something that's an amazing opportunity that I believe that people should take advantage of more. The next thing is we talked briefly about the sub-IDs, but last week, and actually it wasn't even briefly, but last time we got together, we talked about sub-IDs. And I just want to mention that again, that now you do have the opportunity to link your potential clients to specific items in the store and receive credit. And remember, before it was that you had to send them the link of the store, and of course it tracks anything that's purchased from the store. But if you're trying to explain to them about one product, like let's say internal cleansing, then maybe they go into the store and then they kind of get lost, and then they maybe not do anything. But with this, you can link a person directly to the product. We already tested; it's working very well. So I suggest that some start thinking about, especially in some of the posts that are even on the internet, sometimes you can throw a link in there to a product that may be able to assist with whatever the person is saying in the post, or ties into whatever the person is saying in the post. So there's more than one way. It's not just you writing a post and then posting your link. It's also about going through the internet and seeing what other people are talking about, and then posting your link to give them either more information or actually direct them to a product that could assist them in what they're experiencing. So it's just really about being creative, but it's also, us mentioning this. That's a major part of this, is that, I think of ways all the time to assist others in their success. And this is one of the major things. And because we have so many components, we can get really creative about what we're doing. So this whole sub-ID and pay-per post is actually just the beginning of it. The next thing is that we are now starting semester 2 on June 21st. And, I can definitely hear some applauding and cheering going on. And semester 2 is the best already. Like, I've been spending quite a bit of time in actually putting together the manuals that go along with each course. And if you remember, in semester 1, we had a few manuals, but there definitely wasn't a manual that went with each course. And there was a reason for that, because once I got to like the third manual, I realized, I said, it's probably going to be better for me to just have the direct interaction with everyone and begin to explain this step by step and give them the pictures. But once everything was done, I said, you know what, I would like next semester for there to be a manual on every single course. So that way a person has something to refer back to. And then Well, I guess here's what it is. You know, there's in either way, you're going to get the information. We're just always trying to do better. That's really what it is. It's because even if you take just last semester and you go through a course and there's no manual, but there's pictures there, there's suggestions there, so it's a great experience. But can it be enhanced? And the answer is yes. So this time what we're going to do is we're going to have more manuals. We're going to have more definitions of different things that we talk about as far as different words and bigger glossaries. And so I feel like that semester 2 is really, which is dubbed the foundation in Unmovable, is really going to be that semester that allows a person to solidify where they're at in all this. And so it's a major thing, and solidifying the tends to where they're not wavering as much, because obviously I've experienced it, you experienced it, we all experience it, we watch others experience it. This could be extremely shaky, this whole consciousness thing, because, you know, it's like, I always liken it unto when you're leaving an island and you can't see where the next island or body of land is, and you're trying to explain to everyone, though, that there is somewhere out there, and now everyone's been there for like millions of years, and you're trying to tell them, hey man, there's something out there, we need to move on. And they're like, oh, the last person that went out there never came back, so obviously I don't want to go out there. So then finally, you know, you convince a couple people to go with you. You guys jump in a boat and you get out there so far, and you look back, you can't see the old island anymore, and you can't see the new one either. And then obviously there's somewhat of a mutiny, people cussing you out, telling you, you know, you were wrong, you did the wrong thing. And then within the next day, you start seeing new land. And then obviously there becomes new life. And so I feel like that all of this is very similar to that, you know, we have to go on from here. We have to begin to create things new. We have to realize not only responsibility, but the power that we have within ourselves to get out of the conformity of the reality of what's saying that, well, you have to believe this way, and you can't do this. And, you know, all these structures and rules that have become somewhat of a straitjacket for us, because generally the ones who implemented those rules actually don't follow them at all. So this has become more like the rules that have been placed upon us to keep us stagnant. And so, like I said, that ties into the religious idealisms, that ties into even relationship goals, that ties into all sorts of things. So this is the brainwashing that we deal with in the reality, but we already know that. So now it's time for us to implement in the main pillars of how we conduct life. Like, our main conduction of life is, of course, our finances, like how are we making ends meet to deal with this world? Our health, like how is our overall health and our happiness? Our diet, like what are we eating, what are we consuming, and how is that assisting or degrading us? You know, our children, how is our interaction with our children, our family? So those are the pillars of life. And for us to go back into those pillars and do some remodeling is not a bad idea right now, especially since we have so much evidence that the system in which the system that's in place now is actually having, it's crumbling. So this means that there's something that needs to be reworked with it anyway. So if you're on that same system, and I'm going to check audio here real quick, but if you're on that same system, it means that you need to start readjusting things before you actually begin to experience what the system is experiencing now. So, and maybe experiencing that already. I find many people may be in certain aspects crumbling, or not at least to the level that they can be. And that's because they've tied themselves into the laws, the rules, the edicts, the decrees, the oaths, the pacts, and all the things that go on in the dimension that are proving even to this very point that they are not actually going to sustain even the system itself. So it looks like, okay, great. So it looks like that everyone's still able to connect. So we're going to keep going with this. And the next thing that I want to talk about, so just remember, semester 2 is on the way. It's also a really good time. Like I posted it really early because there is some limits. I think it's like 300 live listeners or something like that with the platform that the live stream platform that we're going to be using. Obviously, it's not going to be on YouTube. It's probably going to be on Ustream. But so there is some limits, but I posted it early and we haven't reached those limits yet. I think about 50 people have signed up so far. And so it's going to be amazing. I'm definitely going to bring out all stops. We're even configuring the studio now so that way we can get more hands-on with different things. And yeah, it's going to be amazing. So let your friends know, let people know that, hey, semester 2 is about to begin. And if they haven't started semester 1 yet, then it'd probably be a good time to actually go through that information so they're prepped really well for semester 2. And some did ask, is it necessary for a person to take semester 1 in order to take semester 2? And the answer is no. We're not going to operate like a university and say, well, you have to take this course and this course before you can take this course. We're not going to do that, at least yet. I feel like when we get around to semester 5 even, that the content will be so potent, it'll probably be in our best interest to make sure a person has at least taken some of the earlier lessons in order to be able to fully comprehend what's being presented. But in the same token, I feel like that as we go forward, that this knowledge starts to simplify itself even more. Even I've discovered things within the last 3 weeks that really simplify our whole experience and our whole existence. And I look forward to not only sharing that information in this upcoming show, which I have to talk about, which is Enlightened Life. Enlightened Life is like, it's also a hybrid. It's not just, okay, here's a radio show every week. It's also, here's 10 minutes of knowledge, here's 30 minutes, here's on this specific day. But it really allows me to, in one sense, not have to do a lot of post-production. Like if I could just get in there and just say something that comes to my mind and then post that, then it's going to assist everyone. But then also to start creating a format of an actual show that I feel like will cover every single major topic when it airs. And hopefully we can do that once a week. And in fact, I've been thinking about replacing the Spiritech specialist meetings, supplementing, let's say, with the Enlightened Life show. Because what the Enlightened Life will do is give you more pointers on how to conduct your daily life in conjunction with what you're doing with the specialist program. Because obviously, if we just get on here every time and just talk about the specialist program and sub-IDs and other affiliates, that's going to get rather dry. So at this point, I feel like we've covered a lot of how the specialist program works. And anyone who wants to get involved can easily get information not only from myself, but also others that are involved. So where do we go from here? Where we go is getting into the day-to-day life of what we all experience every day in tandem with how we're conducting everything. So this brings us closer together and it synchronizes us more because we'll begin to engage in the same things. And then we'll have this repository of knowledge and also a system of connection to where we can all experience moment to moment, if necessary, and maybe even Snapchat, what each other is really doing and what we're learning on this mission. And I think that that's important because it gives us a unified field of connection that anyone can access at any time and begin to grow. So that's what's going on with that. And also, I did forget to mention that we're going to be having some product videos created here. And I've talked about these product videos a lot, and I've set everything up to do these product videos. And now there's nothing to it but to do it. There is one thing, though. Next week, we'll actually be, I'll be going down to where the retreat or up to where the retreat is. And so I won't be here. So there actually won't be a specialist meeting next week. And what I plan to do is mainly after semester 2 is done is to go into a whole round of new things for Secret Energy, Spiritech, the Innerversity, and all the other components, but really taking all of that to the next level with some of the amazing things that are going to be launched around those times after semester 2. But rather than getting ahead of ourselves, let's just get through semester 2 because that is quite an immense effort, even for me personally, because here's what happens, when you're trying to find someone that can assist you with doing this kind of thing, there's like a checklist of 200 to 300 things that could prevent that connection. Of course, being in Costa Rica, it benefits me because, there's an immense amount of nature and it allows me to, boil it all off if I spend hours in front of the computer or, it's full moon. So everyone's hitting me with the craziness. So all of that can be neutralized by just going out and taking my shoes off and stepping into the grass and taking some deep breaths. So it benefits me to be here. But because predominantly the population does speak Spanish, I don't speak really good Spanish. And also the mindset is a little bit further behind than the rest of the world. Costa Rica is continuously being put as, it's just a vacation spot. And they kind of treat the people as if, you're just supposed to, be into this very slow, relaxed kind of mindset when obviously there's major things going on in the world. So Costa Rica, while very beautiful, doesn't present a lot of people that are like, I want to change this, let me know how I can really help, et cetera, et cetera. In addition to that, when you have to fly someone in to assist, and then you have to house them, and then you have to, obviously you need more than one person, this could become quite pricey. And then obviously for, a group overall that says, hey, I don't want to deal with money, because that's actually what happens with, when you do spiritual networks, people say, well, I don't like the whole money thing. I hate the money thing. And then on top of that, there's really no contributions. I've really stopped sending those letters that say, hey, could you help? Because they're just almost, I won't say a waste of time, but the response, it's just not there. So this means that I have to, at the end of the day, figure it out. And when you've been in something like this for 6 years, you're not just as willing to just let it all go and say, you know what, they're not helping. I can't really push through this. I'm going to go back to the workforce and do that. It's just not, not something that you want to do. It's like you're looking at your life's work just basically go down the drain. So this is what makes me have to be more creative. It makes me have to work 16, 17, sometimes hours a day in order to make what you see happen. And then also, make it look good, bring it to the standard of where things that you experience in the reality from Facebook and all that, just how all of that really looks. Because sometimes when I go onto a website and it's about consciousness, I just get lost in the design of the site in itself because I can't access the information. So what we've done is that in every single aspect of where things could be better, we've attempted to make those things better despite the level of resources that we have and despite the amount of people that we have that are working with us. Now, of course, we would love to expand, and that's why we're launching all these efforts and making these videos to get involved with more people, for more people to know, hey, they're out there, let me see if I can assist in one way or another. So hopefully as things continue, or not even hopefully, but as things continue, we'll see that expansion that comes along with more people being aware of what we're doing, because it gives us a wider range of people to actually see if they can somehow help us in one way or another without that being an extreme Achilles heel to what we're doing. So that's another thing to think about. So this is not as simple as it may seem to many people, because it also involves a spiritual component. And when you throw that in alone, you may have the perfect person to work on something like, let's say, cameras or manuals or graphics or even websites, and to be able to assist you in boosting that. But the moment they find out that you don't believe in Jesus, that may be the end of the whole thing. And I've watched that happen time and time again, that certain people, when it comes to, well, there's always something is what I'm saying. So at the end of the day, it's still got to happen. So that means that it falls back on me to make it happen, not me to just sit here like, oh, nobody's going to help. And then we never get to anywhere, because even now we have an amazing site. We have an amazing specialist program. We're dealing with amazing people. And then the only thing we're looking to do now is grow more and get more exposure. So that's what's up with that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to answer some spiritually technical questions that have been presented. I've had one of my great friends, Peter Crum, who actually had a birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, brother. He's been linked up with a group that's on Facebook that he created, and people have been are part of the network, and some people who aren't have been kind of putting some questions out there. And I told Peter, hey, if these people putting some questions out there, send those questions to me and I'll get to them when I can. And I found that many of those questions actually tied into the whole Spiritech specialist program and what you would need to know anyway to keep expanding. So here we go. And that's what I plan Enlightened Life really in being also, as a place to where practical questions get answered, versus Keymaker, which of course is still looming out there. It's coming for those who are asking. Keymaker is definitely from the continuation of where we left off last, which was the quantum computing and then what comes next. It's really more of designed to deal with the heavy levels of the occult matters of what we deal with in every day, and even beyond. So it's more of an expansive show, versus Enlightened Life is, hey, what am I doing every single day? And there's a reason for this, and I'll mention this now. And it's because when you study the occult, and when you study conspiracies, and when you study what's basically not right with the world and what may be not right with the cosmos, what happens if you do that a large percent of your time, then you actually become quite jaded. And we've watched this happen, and I've had it happen to me, that you start becoming like, more like somewhat of an emo. You just become very emotionally grumpy about just the whole situation, because after all, you're like, what's the whole purpose of keep continuously doing this if, the whole thing, it's broke over here and broke over there. And that's a direct product actually of not balancing out the ignorance, which was what I'll say is the darkness. So like if you're studying darkness, so you're studying what's going wrong, you're studying the ignorance that the world is in and what they don't know. So you also have to engage in life. And these are actually the practical things, like practical stuff like how to even, clean your skin and what to feel like on a daily basis, some motivational stuff. So it could seem simple, but it has everything to do with life. So I see both of them as a very valuable component, because one is dark and one is light. And then when you put them together, they come into harmony. And so in every respect, that's the true darkness and true light. That's, learning about the ignorance and removing the ignorance by learning about what is hidden and, what could be going on that other people didn't consider. But because that has somewhat of an occult, dark, hidden connotation to it, you got to make sure you mix it with the light, simplified, vigorous happiness and what goes on in that arena also, so you get a very unique fusion rather than somewhat of a distortion of your daily being. So, because what happens is that, imagine a lot of us, and we're going to talk about this in a minute in one of these questions, come from a background of being very energetic, a people person. You're out there, you're having fun, everything's great. That's life. But also somewhat ignorant to what else is going on behind the scenes and maybe not even care. That's death. And so what happens is that you can use the balance of both of those two components, and obtaining that balance actually allows you to become a much more full and complete person. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the depthhood. We're looking for the maturity. And that maturity and depthhood is telling us that, hey, you need to make sure that you're getting a fair balance of these components. So, all right, well, let's answer some spiritually technical questions. Someone asked about the difference between inorganic and organic minerals, and what does that mean, especially in context to if putting inorganic minerals or elements into the body actually destroy the body. So first of all, if you understand the term, because these are scientific terms, organic and inorganic. And what it means is organic substances are classified as having a carbon base as their foundation. So humans are considered organic because we are carbon-based life forms. And plants are, of course, carbon-based life forms. But if you go and look these terms up now, organic and inorganic, you'll find that there's an extreme dispute in the scientific community because there are some things that are labeled inorganic that actually have a very organic nature to them, but they're just not carbon-based life forms. So we find that these terms are actually, just as I said on one of the shows, they don't make any sense, because crystals are, of course, considered inorganic. Some crystals are silicone-based life forms. So inorganic would then mean to us, oh, it's not real or it's not natural, because, of course, if we go and read something in the store and it says, oh, it's inorganic or it's organic, then we say, oh, this is natural, this is real, it's no chemicals. And then we read something that says inorganic, we're like, okay, that's GMO. So this is what the part of the confusion that goes on in the medical and the scientific industries, with them basically coining terms 50, 60 years ago, and then finding out that those terms actually don't apply anymore because now there's future research in those kind of arenas. So in a nutshell, what's happened is this term organic and inorganic virtually has no meaning in the scientific industry. So to answer your question about does putting inorganic substances in the body shut down the organs, calcify the organs, etc., the answer is no. There are specific elements that if you do put in your body, that they will calcify your system, such as calcium, such as fluoride, such as pesticides and concentrated toxins, things that are found in the water. These are things that you see when you distill the water, then you look down into the distiller, you see all of this scale is what they call it. And that scale does build up in the body and build up around the organs and calcify the body. But if you actually took the scale and then took it to, let's say, a laboratory and did a laboratory analysis on it, you'll find it's mixed with, fecal matter to pesticide, as I said, to drugs, to there's, all the stuff that seeps into the water supply, different chemicals and elements. So the two totally don't connect. You just have to really be more astute at examining the elements that you're putting in your body and exactly what they're doing for their overall purpose and use. And so this kind of gets us into the next thing, because I think that at this point we need to do a very in-depth explanation of water filtration. And this is actually contained in one of the semester 2 courses, but I don't mind in releasing this information now because it's practical information. We all need it. And this is about what's actually going on with the back and forth beef between distilled water, spring water, mineral water, tap water, and what was the other version of water? So the distilled water, filtered water. So the waters. Okay, so what's going on with the waters? So let's see. All right, so it looks like everyone's connected. I just wanted to take a moment, make sure we're all connected. So what's going on with the waters? Let me wait for the camera to transition. As you see, I got some transitioning going on with the cameras. Mixes it up a little bit so that, everyone's not just looking at ye old face. All right. Okay, so let me just go ahead and get into this. So what's happening is that water is a big thing, obviously. 70% of our body is water. 70% of the earth approximately is water. So what's going on with water and what do we need to do? And obviously there's a big thing about distilled water and how you should use that, especially over tap water. But there's some in-depth information that you need to know that you can maybe perceive as scientific. So this is like the scientific facts about water and what you need to know about what to do with it in order to get the experience that you're looking for out of it. So let's talk about the first thing. Let's talk about distilled water. Okay. The reason why distilled water is so popular is because when you distill water and you take a meter, which measures parts per million, it measures how many minerals or elements or particles are actually in the water. And these meters are like $20, so a lot of people have them. And so when they distill water and they dip this meter into the water, it'll say 0. Sometimes it'll say maybe 1. Versus when you take that same meter and you dip it into tap water, it'll say around 200, 300, depending upon how bad the tap water is. But many didn't notice that if you take that same meter and you dip it into mineral water, you're also going to get a very high count also, because those are minerals present in the water. Now, when I use these terms, spring water, mineral water, what I'm talking about is I'm not talking about necessarily the spring water or the mineral water that you buy in the store. What I'm talking about is the spring water that comes from the spring, and I'm talking about the mineral water that comes from generally the artesian springs. So if you're buying spring water and mineral water from the store, you would still need to investigate the source of where that spring water and mineral water is coming from. So just for specifics here, I'm referring to each of these in their strictest terms. So when we're talking about distilled water, we're talking about water that's pulled right out of the distiller. Now, the issue with distilled water, let's talk about the pros and cons here. But let's talk about the pros first. The pros is that distilled water has nothing in it. So all those chemicals have been removed. And this means for many people that I would rather drink water with no chemicals in it because it's pure. But this is somewhat of a misconception. And the reason is because, first off, if you drink this water on a consistent basis, you will find that water is an element that constantly needs to bond with minerals, which are, ions. So there needs to be some kind of ionic bonding going on. So when there's no bonding, and let me check my switcher here because it seems like it may have gotten itself stuck. Yeah, because I didn't hit it on rerun. 1 second, everyone. Because I know you don't want to be looking at this graphic. So let's stop this real quick. 1 moment. We'll stop this. And we'll start this. And then it's on. Yeah, that thing wasn't on loop, so it's just going to stay there. So I'd rather you see me here. So what I'm explaining here again is about the water. So what happens is, now what's useful about distilled water is because the distilled water is looking for something to bond with. And this is where the whole notion that distilled water cleanses the body comes from. When you drink the distilled water, it starts to pull the toxins, the minerals, and pretty much many of the deposits from the body, okay? Now, someone created some false information. They said distilled water only pulls the bad minerals out of the body. And nothing can be more silly, because distilled water does not have a brain and to say, that's the bad one, that's the good one, I'm going to eat the bad one. How would that even make sense? If it had a form of thought, it was like, hey, I'm going to eat the good ones. So you can see that doesn't make any sense. But someone started spreading that around about 15 years ago, and it's been going throughout the network, and no one has ever checked back to see whoever started that saying, and is it in fact true? And the truth is that it's actually not true. Distilled water does not distinguish what mineral and what toxin that is pulling from the body. But this means that if a person has been drinking tap water all their life and drinking bad water all their life, then maybe a year or two of distilled water is probably in their best interest. Why? Because they have a body full of toxins. And generally, if they haven't been checking on their water, they haven't also been that big on minerals either. So this means that the body is probably filled with a lot of toxins. So for them, distilled water will work. And so this is why you hear many people, oh, distilled water, I tried it. It gave me lots of energy. And, it's the best. Don't drink any other water beside distilled water. Okay. Now, for a person such as myself who's been dealing with I'm the connoisseur of water for about 7 years now, I have that much time in actually experimenting with all waters, drinking them, and for years seeing their effects. And what I'll say is that there is a turning point in drinking distilled water. It happens around 2.5 years. You start to experience, because your body is clean, like I don't eat anything crazy. I've been a vegetarian for 12 years, so my body doesn't have that many toxins in it anyway. So after 2 years, I started noticing symptoms of mineral deficiency. And let me tell you what those symptoms are. One of those symptoms are hair loss. Like if you start noticing that you're losing hair and you've never lost hair before, okay, that's one symptom of hair loss, because your hair needs the minerals in order to keep growing. I mean, nails need the minerals in order to keep growing. That's what they're wholly really comprised of, is that silicate and those different minerals, okay? So it needs that. The second thing is that you start feeling tired. Okay, and this means that, overall your energetic level is kind of low, and this could be directly a result of distilled water. Other things, of course, but the distilled water, if you're drinking it, could play a component. Another thing, if you're drinking the water and then it's coming right out, this means that the water is not absorbing very well, and this is because also distilled water happens to be slightly on the acidic side, and it doesn't actually absorb really well in the body. So this means that if you take the distilled water through some treatment, it's just like what you would do if you get in the kitchen, you start preparing yourself all of this food. We sit there and we get all the vegetables and whatever you eat, we get it all together. So you have to start thinking of water as being necessary to do the same way, that you're going to have to actually now get into preparing your water. So if you're going to still use distilled water, again, if you're a beginner, you may not need to worry about any of this yet. But if you're more advanced and you're still using your distiller and you're experiencing what I'm talking about now, you're going to need to do one, add ionic minerals to your water. You can find those on Cassar's site. Now, here's where another argument comes in. Dr. Cassar has some really good quality ionic minerals. So one of the arguments is that, well, these ionic minerals, the body doesn't absorb those minerals very well. You're absolutely right. Because the whole goal of adding the ionic minerals to the water is actually not for you to supplement those ionic minerals for minerals in your body. Why, although your body will absorb some of those minerals, for the most part it won't. It's to add minerals to the water. because the water will bond with those minerals and thus keep the water from leaching minerals from your body, because the water will be stabilized. Thus, when the water gets into the system, again, it won't leach anything from the system and it will hydrate the system. Okay? So just remember, the whole purpose of putting those ionic minerals in the water is not to add minerals to your body. You can get minerals from plants. You can get minerals from all sorts of different substances that are a lot more similar for the body than you could from ionic minerals in the water. The purpose of adding them to the water is to keep the water from leaching minerals from your body. Okay? Another one of the things that's brought up that is 100% true is that distilled water is actually not structured. And that's true, that distilled water actually loses its structure in that steaming process. So that perfect snowflake hexagonal pattern that appears, that was proven to appear in water when you look at it in the water crystals, it's completely eradicated because the process of distillation is rather strenuous for the water. So you need to actually restructure the water. And one of the ways to restructure water, and I named 3, and I write all this stuff down in the manual, but one of the ways to restructure water is actually just putting crystals such as citrine and quartz into the water and then placing the water into the sunlight. Because what this does is the sun is actually a major component in structuring the water back into those perfect hexagonal crystals. So that's one way, probably the cheapest, most efficient way to do that. The second way is to find some type of stir plate that can begin to vortex the water, because that also turns the water back into that hexagonal pattern. Now, I talk about the PyMag 2, which I'll show during the semester, but there's one in the kitchen. I found one on eBay. This is the PyMag Optimizer 2, and it just vortexes the water. And I found one, like, they used to be really expensive. I found one, I think, for like $150 or something like that. And that is like a off-the-shelf device that the water, and then it adds not only oxygen to the water, but it also restructures the water. So that's a device that actually does it right out of the box. Or else you can find a stir plate, which you can find all over the internet, even as low as $10, $15. And those, of course, they're used for multiple things, but they will put a vortex into the water. So there you have it. That's the preparation that's necessary for distilled water to be on the level. And then obviously you need to consider time. So this is why the whole thing becomes so confusing for many people, is because they'll have like parts of that knowledge and then functioning on parts of that knowledge, arguing with other people about it. And then they'll never get to the conclusion of what's going on. Even if they're experiencing the mineral deficiencies, they'll insist that it's not the water, but in fact it is. The next thing is that, so what you do though is that sometimes, just like you don't eat the same food every day, you can mix your waters. I find this to be very useful, especially since I excrete a lot of water in the workout. So I sweat a lot in the workout from just, burning it out. And then if you throw the distilled water right after that, the body could be like, I need something with more, a better surface tension so I can absorb it. So it's then beneficial for me to switch over to, like here where we are, and in Costa Rica, it's quite a bit of places they have still well water. So I'll switch over to the well water, and then I'll put that in my system. Or you may, if you have something like a big Berkey or a really good water filtration system, you can run the tap water even through those water filtration systems and then drink that water that comes out of that, and still find that for, the third year of drinking distilled water, that water that's coming from the Berkey and one of those gravity filtration systems may be better for you than the distilled water at that time. But if you're going to go on a cleanse, you may want to supplement the water. So see what I mean? So you can have these different forms of water. And then obviously you got your spring waters and you got your mineral waters. Now, obviously, if you got direct spring water and you got a spring outside the house, which most people don't have, you don't need to be messing with any of this stuff, because the spring water is going to be naturally mineralized from coming through the spring, and it's going to be naturally distilled, because if it's, the rain distills the water, and then it's naturally structured, etc. So the spring water is really the best water. Mineral water is the same way, because generally it comes from an artesian system or aqueduct or something that's holding the water in the ground. So that's great water. But of course, many people don't have access to that kind of water. So that's why these filtration systems and distillation systems come into place. So hopefully that answers every question that a person may have about water and how to make sure that this water is of greatest benefit to them. So we're going to move on to the next question. And this question was, these questions, I like these questions so much that I said, you know what, I got to get these questions in. And, I was like, great, because now I don't have to just get on here and start talking about sub-IDs and all that, even though it's a necessary part of the conversation to keep people aware of what's going on in the Spiritech Specialist program. After all, this is the Spiritech Specialist meeting. I still would never like us to get so conformed to this traditional orthodox way of handling things, like, oh, this needs to be a business conversation, so it's, we can't mix anything else. That's not how we roll. We put all the knowledge, wisdom, application, experience, and everything into what we do. So this is just another part of it. So the next thing was, obviously, many people report having abilities as a child, lucid dreaming, even time travel, et cetera, you name it, everything that could be associated with being enlightened. Many people found that they were doing that as a child. The question is why, as we get older, do those powers seem to dissipate? Now, some people say, well, that's obvious. And the reason is because there's like at least 20 different reasons. But I'm going to name some of the top reasons why those abilities go dormant. I think one of the primary reasons why is our belief. That our belief starts becoming tampered with as we're growing up through brainwashing, meaning our belief in ourselves, our belief in this reality, where we're really at, even our belief in others around us and who we see them as. It's extremely positive and extremely harmonic. We see everything as an adventure. We're just learning. In fact, we don't even have a really sound idea of what death really is yet, because in most cases, I can't say in every case, because obviously many of children have experienced death before, but in many cases they haven't, and there's no sound idea that, oh, I'm going to die, and that they start focusing on that. So basically the mind is really free, and it's free of much of this programming. And in addition to that, it's free of a lot of the judging that goes on that wastes a lot of our brain power and a lot of our power in general. So this is something very important to talk about, because if you notice, and check your own mind, I'm not saying you directly, but notice how we start to take on more of a pessimistic, negative attitude. And in every sense, this could be even something lightly that comes to your mind. Like you could think of, okay, well, shoot, I got to go to the store today. It's going to be a lot of traffic. What if I get into a car accident? And it's like, well, whoa, where did that negative thought come from? Or, I just sold this product and everything is going great with this transaction. And it looks like I'm really going somewhere in my life. Well, what if they cancel the order? So what we notice is that there's this literal antithesis that becomes more prevalent in our mindset as we get older. And this is a direct result of not only the brainwashing, but the negative experience in the reality, versus children have a tendency not to have that component installed at all. Like they will jump off something not thinking, well, what if I get hurt? What if I break my leg? What if I hit my head on that rock and it splits open? So all of that extra pessimism that has been added into our consciousness as we're growing up is actually what begins to hinder those abilities. So this is one of the things, or actually quite a few of the things that I named, that I find to be the most instrumental in taking us away from those powers. So how do we restore those powers? Well, obviously we're on that path now. We're on to figuring out how we now need to deprogram ourselves. And by the way, deprogramming S2 is going to knock it out of the park. We're not just now in the school system. We're actually digging deep into the financial systems. We're digging into the linguistic systems. We're digging into everything, because what this allows you to do, because literally knowing is half the battle. I'll give you an example. The thalamus, which is in the center of the brain, is actually more instrumental to pineal gland activation than the pineal gland itself. Because many people think of the pineal gland as a receptacle or orifice or a gland that allows us to be able to perceive the spiritual world beyond what the normal eyes could see. And that is true. However, for the pineal gland to begin to operate that way in our perception, because it's always doing that, we need to tune the thalamus, which is like the real-time gauge of determining what you see and what you don't see. So even within our own subconscious programming, the things that are running around the reality even right now, we tune out if we don't want to see those things, especially stuff like negative energies. So what we tell the thalamus or the wedding chamber or the one who's responsible for creating the balance is we tell it, hey, be a little bit more over here towards the right or the logic side so that we can tune out anything that has to do with stuff that I don't want to see. So there's also the hippocampus, the thalamus, and the pineal gland that all need to be working in conjunction in order for one to become fully perceptive of the spiritual realities on any kind of consistent basis. So this is what I mean by when you learn this kind of knowledge, though, something happens within your own consciousness that actually allows the thalamus to actually become more balanced. And this is what I keep saying about knowing is half the battle, because somehow when we perceive that, someone starts thinking about that and say, well, let me go do my own research, or maybe that's actually true. Something triggers within our consciousness and says, hey, that's what it really is. And then it starts to connect things like you're asleep or something and it's still working, and saying, okay, now I can start to balance this out so I can begin to tune into more of my reality and then, or the real reality, and then you start feeling the activation from the pineal gland. So this is the things that we need to realize is the reason why, even though we have to use English to do this in most cases to communicate with one another, that we bring knowledge and information about all this stuff is because it's not just knowledge and information written on a paper or spoken from someone's mouth. It's also a trigger or a click that the mind does the necessary calculations, and then the spirit body gets wind of it, the physical body gets wind of it. Even if someone tells you, like what we talked about now about distilled water, you begin to go make the physical, you make the physical, geez, my mind is like, hey, it's still my mind is still on the thalamus right now. It makes the physical actions that are necessary in order for you to benefit from what's said. And then that in turn gets you into a spiritual and a physical, spiritual, and mental tri-merge. So what I'm saying is all these systems are connected together. So even if you hear something that's verbal and going through the mindset, because a lot of people say, you can't, do it with the mind, but the mind is a very unique component in order at least to begin in making the transformation to the spiritual side of your consciousness and definitely the physical side. So just remember that the reason why we're bringing this knowledge is not to give anyone information overload and to not talk about things that are related to spirituality or do techniques that are related to spirituality, but all of them are actually all related. And we generally do a really good job, at least I think so, in visiting all of those fields, because I've always worked with the mental, physical, spiritual aspect of teaching in order to try merge this knowledge and experience that we're all having. All right, it looks like we're still doing good on sound, and we're actually coming to more of the end of today's conversation because we are nearing that 1 hour mark, I believe. I'm not sure. It looks like it's 11:22 here. Is that right? Oh, wow. So, okay, so maybe we'll be getting out of here a little bit earlier today. So the thing is that the next question, So just remember, so why are these abilities dormant? Let's finish that. So why are these abilities start to grow dormant? We start to judge more, right? We start to think negatively. And then the other one is we also begin to toxify our bodies more. So remember that the real judges, as we're going to talk about here in just a moment, the real judges tie into the organs of the body, because what you do to those organs is going to ultimately judge your physical, mental, and spiritual strength, and in some cases, your time of death. Now, we're not going to say everyone who eats great is going to die old, but you know what I mean. Because death is not just when your pulse stops beating. Death could also be considered as when you're no longer really alive and no longer really passionate about life, and you're no longer willing to jump out there and take risks. So death can come in many different forms. So that's what happens is as we begin to become embedded, and someone has real estate in our mind now, and all this symbolism, Nike and My Little Pony and Transformers, and and the politician and Santa Claus, and when all that begins to cloud the consciousness, no longer does our adventure and our happiness take the forefront to our experience. What happens from there is we begin to basically become clouded, weighed down, and densified. I'm not sure if that's a word. It is today. Densified by our overall experience in the reality. Also, remember that the chakras develop between certain ages. Generally, there are cycles of 7s, especially for the chakra system. So from 1 to 7 years old, the root chakra and the root system of our consciousness is being developed. So of course, in that specific period, it really does become where all the stuff that you're experiencing, whether it's from, negative parents to being bullied in school to bad food or growing up in the hood, and all that starts to really drive into the main component of your energy center. Remember, the root chakra is the main component of our energetic system. It should never be neglected. That's why many people choose to spend more time. Like if you check out the gurus and things, they may say, well, I want to spend the rest of my lifetime in the root chakra just to have my root chakra really develop. Now, that is something that they choose to do. And it's because if you blow open one of these higher chakras, but you don't have a very strong root chakra, then you're not grounded. So this is why, even with the courses, we started with the netherworld, meaning like when you build a building, you don't build right on the floor. Like if we're going to build this building was built first by digging a deep hole into the ground. That's iconic to the netherworld. So you need to dig deep because that's where you're going to put the roots or the foundation. So some just think, okay, we're going to start building right here on this top level, and then when the wind blows, it's going to just get blown away. Or over time, it will crumble rather rapidly. So what we're doing first is we dug the hole into the netherworld of our consciousness, and we set the pylons and the pillars and the rebar and all of that. So that way, as we keep going up, then where are we at now? Semester 2. Now we're unmovable. Now this stuff, you pour the concrete in. Now it's not moving. So this way, when you build all the way up, when you're on level 9 or when we're on semester 9, and everyone in that course that has experienced Innerversity to this point should be so advanced, but also in not allowing those powers and abilities to actually become to their detriment, which could also happen. This is what actually is the path of sorcerers, is that they don't develop a very strong root system. They generally, well, I can't say generally, but some had best interest in mind. But when they get up there with all that power and they're responsible for utilizing that power properly, they could be corrupted rather easy because they don't have a foundation. So there's no roots. So look at this even from another aspect. If you have the mother, the father, the mentors, those are all synonymous with roots. Those are like what raised you, right? So raised, look at the term, like you got to grow up, you're growing up, right? So something has to be there as your foundation, and it has to be solid and strong. So whatever that root system is, you need to make sure that that root system is strong, even if it means going in there, or they call it uprooting, and then putting in and placing new roots and pylons, etc., in order for you to expand. Because if you really look at society today, it doesn't consider any of this. It's only interested in the power right away. Everyone wants to go right to the top. And this is why you find so many people that are on the top being so unbalanced, so able to be manipulated, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, so we witness this every day. It's any truth to what I'm saying, you will see it everywhere. You will see it as above, you'll see it below, you will see all the connections to it. You'll see it in nature, you'll see it in the crystal kingdom, you'll see it in every kingdom, the animal kingdom, the bacterias, you'll see it all over the place. The same system of not developing roots. Then when you don't have any roots, what happens when you get to a certain age and time, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the knowledge. So we talk about then this whole process of our awakening is about restoring ourselves to being childlike, but not childish. There's two different things. You can be a childlike adept, pure in your consciousness and intent to not allowing the whole judging and the filtration processes to be to your own demise. 1 second. We have one camera cut off here. And let me just get this thing going on. 1 second, everyone. And this probably means that one of the cameras has run out of battery. So let me just replace the battery really briefly, and then we'll keep going here. And I do apologize for the delay. You can also take this time to go and do anything that you would like to do. Yeah, this thing says the battery's exhausted. That's a funny term. All right, so let me just take a moment here and then put another battery in this camera, and then we're going to keep going. And we're actually, again, at the somewhat of the close. There's one more powerful question that I believe many will get some great insight from. And we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to adjourn for today. And next week, as I mentioned, actually for me, it's Sunday, even though it's about 3 days after that until everyone arrives. The first retreat is actually going to begin. And I'm expecting to have an amazing time with connecting with others and the ones that are participating in there. And obviously, we're going to be capturing a lot of it on camera. And so I hope to be sharing that footage with those that may not be able to make it during this point, but have plans to make it in the future and want to see exactly what it's going to be like. So let me look at my focus here. And it seems like I'm a bit out of focus. So 1 second. There we go. All right, let's hope that that works. All right, here we go. Let's see. So the screen's going to go black for one moment, and we're going to go ahead and start our run again, and boom. All right, so I need to know that those things actually, I don't know how long that was. That didn't seem like, I guess according to this, how long have we been on this thing? Have we? Okay, so that's, see, the other thing is that, and many probably have figured this out, and I always go back and forth about this, but see, Costa Rica, because of being so close to the equator, doesn't have daylight savings time. So just to show you how defunct the system is of time. So I'm on Central Time still, but someone in Chicago on Central Time will be on daylight savings time. So for me, it's actually 11 o'clock now, and I'm on 11:30, and I'm on Central Standard Time. But for someone else, it's actually 12:30, and they're on Central Standard Time also. Okay, so there's Central Standard Time, no daylight savings time, and Central Standard Time, daylight savings time. So very confusing, but this is also why I look. So it's actually been an hour and a half somewhat that we've been broadcasting. So I do need to kind of speed it up a little bit, for the sake of everyone. But we're almost to the close anyway. So just listen to this. So this next question, and I think this was asked by Raul, and it was an amazing question because he asked about, so why do judges give consecutive life sentences? 1 second, let me get excuse me everyone. Let me get my mic together here. Okay. All right, so hopefully everyone can hear me well because it was kind of, I know it probably was muffled a little bit. But anyway, so he asked, so why would a judge give a consecutive life sentence? And I thought that was the most amazing question because it's something that people never really think, like, what's the whole purpose of giving someone 5 life sentences if 1 life sentence will do enough? Is there some kind of ramifications that go on after life that person will still be subject to because of receiving this 5 lifetime sentence or 2 lifetime sentence, right? And this actually brings us to a very, very deep part of what's going on in the reality in relationship to our own perceptions about the power that these people that call themselves the controllers, whatever, have in the reality. And also, and I'm just, working on getting this right because it's a very simple thing, but very complex. But also how the system the judicial system is actually designed in the world today. Okay, so let's talk about the judicial system very briefly. What is a courthouse? And we've talked about this before, but what a courthouse is a courthouse is a vessel, a maritime vessel, docked on land. So it's a maritime vessel and it belongs to the king. That's the other thing. It has a designation. It belongs to the king, the same ones that you see in the secret societies. And this is why you have it being fully staffed by accepted Freemasons. Now, the bailiffs don't have to be accepted because they may just be Freemasons in general. Generally, the wardens and the, what do you call the people, the guards, they generally also are possibly Freemasons, but not necessarily accepted Freemasons. But the judges are always accepted Freemasons, okay? And this is because they have an oath by edict of the king that they will basically serve the king. They have an oath to the king. And there is actually, if they go against the king, there is a punishment that is similar to what would be treason or high treason, okay? So the reason why this is important to bring up, because it lets you understand the entire system that everyone is, the entire system that people are being placed under on earth, because in every aspect, the licensing systems, like a dog needs a license and a collar. I mean, people know a lot about this. There's even, no names made, I think is the legal name fraud. So many people have read about that and studied that very heavily. And there's a lot of validity to what's being said in that form of knowledge, in that system of knowledge. Because in the ancient times, it's only mentioned that if it is named, it has been created. Meaning that if something has a name, it has been created. So any being that was supposed to be really grand didn't have a name. So they used to refer to it as the nameless one. Okay. But sometimes I think that this can go overboard, because from our understanding of the identity of a spirit anyway, is a spirit is an individualized portion of the soul. So in every extent, the spirit is a creation, whether it's from it's from our own manifestation of us as soul beings. Okay. So this means, as they call it, sovereign. So this means that this is an action or activity that goes on in the matrix. And rather than saying one's bad or good, it's just important to make sure that you understand where you stand in all of this. Like, what are you using this name for? And are you thinking that you're only this name or this created spirit? Or do you have a connection with your soul? So it just goes further. So I advise people to not only research the legal name fraud, but also have the consciousness and the expansion level to go forward and understand, okay, but there's more to this, because it gets into a spiritual aspect of what spirits are anyway versus the soul. So as long as we're not IDing ourselves only as, oh, I'm James and I live on this street and here's my ID number, and we're fully aware of our consciousness, then that becomes more important than possibly throwing your name in the trash can and trying to operate without one in the world, which will probably land you into a rather nasty situation very fast. So we have to find the balance in our knowledge and what we understand. But just so you realize that, so what these people are attempting to do, those that are in allegiance with the king, is bring the heavenly system of order, which doesn't belong to them, belongs to everyone, down to earth, and place themselves, as the king has done, and in a direct representation in these days as a direct emulation of the God. Okay, so they're in the tent, the Masons, in service to God, and the God is the king. And this is why God is Gud, the Germanic king, because most of Freemasonry actually comes from Germany, or was really cultivated most in Germany. Okay, to put the whole world in service under Germany. So I think we've had that time before, and I don't think we're out of that time. And this, of course, is the Nazi regime. So what you have is maritime law is different than the law of the land. Maritime law is a lot more open. Like, you can go and get a boat and drive out on the ocean and then live in that boat and have that boat as your house. And now you're no longer subject to the laws of the land. You're now under maritime law. So this gives you different powers and benefits. And then also it's like the law of the ocean is like, That's why there's pirates. I mean, it's a lot more where you need to protect yourself. You need to be sovereign. There's no one really that's going to protect you unless you're in protected waters. I mean, there's a lot to it. So what they do with a courthouse is they're literally taking a boat that belongs to the king and docking it on land. So when a person has bought, when their system has bought a charge against you or accused you of something, they then bring you into their vessel. So that way you're no longer subject to the real natural laws of the land. You're subject to the maritime laws that they have put in place in their maritime structure, okay? And this is really based on, and I can't get into it very deep now, but it's really based on that the first deities were actually the first deities that were worshipped generally were feminine. The first deities were actually androgynous. Okay, so but when the system of worship came in, most of those deities were women. And so when the masculine system came in, they tried to replace those feminine roles with masculine roles. But even to this day, all those masculine roles in secret societies, those men generally wear dresses. This is why you see the judge come in a dress. They wear wigs, as you see in the parliament. They basically attempt to emulate the divine feminine. In Freemasonry, they wear the apron. And they're doing this because they're attempting to replace the divine feminine. Okay? And this is because in ancient times, in times of antiquity, then there was only a consideration of the goddess. The god had not actually come into form yet. And before that, there was only consideration into the androgen because there was knowledge of an androgen life forms that were the first physical, especially human template beings to arrive on the earth. Okay. So, and I hope this is not getting confusing, but just remember, so this vessel that's docked on the land is operating under a maritime law that has been scripted under the Germanic system of Freemasonry, accepted Freemasonry, and the judges then act and take the role of the accusers. Now, the natural role of the accusers, which can be seen as archonic, are actually our organs and also the planetary systems. And so this is why that there was knowledge that when you leave the world that you are judged. Okay, so this is how that comes out Actually, it's not just the dogmatic system of today. You actually see this in the Book of the Dead, that in the Cometan system, that the heart is weighed against the feather, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a judgment that takes place. From my research and experience, what this judgment is really about is going through 7 energetic fields known as the hebdomad, which correspond to the archonic centers. It corresponds to the rainbow or the 7 colors in the rainbow, etc. But going through that system in order to be exonerated from these accusers. And from my understanding and experience, the easiest way to do that is to not judge. That's why they say, judge and ye shall be judged. But when you're free and you don't see the difference between one thing and another, meaning you don't differentiate, then you cannot be held by these forces. Now, this is also what happens in spiritual progress, that if you stop judging and identifying, this is a chair, this is a piece of wood, this is a steel, and you start seeing it all as one thing, then you start becoming more perceptive of the entire field being made of one thing. So listen to what I'm saying, because at any point a person can try to literally or externally define these terms and then end up like the Freemasons and all these secret societies are today, with a misinterpretation of what it means to judge and not judge, okay? Because you're the only one that can judge yourself. So it turns out that at the end of life that you have these frequencies of division, the rainbow, the 7 chakras, the races, etc., the divisions. You have this in your consciousness, and if you don't dissolve that before you depart from here, then you are accused by one of them, meaning they bring a claim against you. Did you love? Were you courageous? And then if you take that accusation, and this is why religion is heavily driven around accusing people into being sinners, worthy of hell, etc., because all that is the judgment-based system that starts to hold you. So for a person that has been given 3 to 4 life terms in prison, you can imagine that most of their most of the remaining of their life, they're thinking about, man, I got 3 life year sentences, so I'll never get out of here. And then when they finally die, they die with that on their mind. So that accusation comes against them. So in the reincarnation process, when they come back under some form of imprisonment. Okay? So that's how that works. But if that person lets that go, says, I can't be judged by anyone. I don't even judge myself. Then they could be free of those laws, ethics, rules, pacts, oaths, bindings, etc. So it's important to understand how this works, that we get an opportunity in our consciousness now, if we can do the proper deprogramming, to stop doing the judgments from the critical level of saying something's right, something's wrong, etc., and then start to neutralize or collapse that prism, okay? It's all tied in. It's so difficult at times for me to even articulate properly what this is really about. And I found out why. I found this out and I wrote it on my Facebook. And what it is that, see, English has 26 letters revealed, 26 letters hidden, giving us a total of 52, which is the modern deck of cards or the tarot, okay? 5 plus 2 equals 7. So this is the entire system that they deal with. But what happens is that in the ancient system has at least 2,000 plus characters and all those characters are used to not only explain what goes on in this world, but the world below, the planes, which is left and right is the planes, the world below, that's down and up, and then the world above, that's up and down. And you can read this ancient language in each of those directions in order to actually get the meaning that corresponds with those directions. So that's how powerful those languages are. So when we come back into English and we're trying to use this 26 letters to explain this kind of levels of knowledge about the hebdomad, crossing the hebdomad, not judging, being of clear mind and clear thought and focus. And if someone tries to bring an accusation against you or ask, why are you crossing here? You say, I am returning to the one that sent me, who is myself. Meaning that you're acknowledging that nothing is separate from you, so you're not in division. So anyone trying to bring an accusation against you is bringing an accusation against themselves. This is it's not just a hack in the system. It's actually the way that this is supposed to be. You're supposed to leave here free, not binded and chained down by the accusers. But when you start reading into the lore that makes up Christianity, makes up Islam, you find that these external archonic forces, as above, so below, there will be external versions. These external archonic forces are chiefs in bringing accusations against each spirit on the planet in order to bind them or imprison them further. So that's what you're dealing with this system. And we have the power to transcend that system. So that's pretty much all I had to bring forth today. It's something that you can rewind back, look over again, but it gives you very in-depth information about what exactly is happening in the reality and also how to get beyond it in your own consciousness. And as I said, just mentioning this already starts to work on different parts, like as if you were asleep and the brain is still operating, consciousness is still operating. It's already putting what's been said to work, so that way you can begin to benefit from what you've learned today and what you've also experienced in life and all the connections, because you'll start making all those connections yourself. The last thing is that I wanted to say, and I don't need this any further, but I wanted to say that, so after this last full moon, because, I'm very empathic. So I not only can feel the energy of others, I can also see things, especially when I'm asleep, because my body is, all the energy that it takes to run this is not necessary. So that energy is diverted into more of my spiritual faculties. So the glands that run the optical system, the auric centers, etc. So what I started seeing is, as I started seeing some rather negative worlds begin to merge into the structure of the dream world. Meaning that I'm sure many people had a couple of very negative dreams that seem out of place, like negativity that of a different nature in a certain tense. And I pay note to that. Like what I do is I don't get too deep into the dreams, because you can get lost there, and dreams can be programmed by your own personal stimulus. That's what lucid dreaming is. You can start lucid dreaming and pull up anything you want. So you have to be aware that you often pull up what you want in the dream. In addition to that, dreams can be manipulated by the food that you eat, the Wi-Fi field that's in the house, etc. So I tend to use dreams as more or less a secondary note. But I did notice that there was a lot of very strange, negative kind of energy going around this full moon. So I just said, you know what? I can see that whatever these, wannabes are actually doing, they're pumping more of that negative energy into the world. Well, I would call it evil, because to me, negative is a component to positive, like what you would see in the car, like the battery. But evil, as I mentioned, is a distortion that comes about within the language to where someone starts to act out in deformity. So that to me is the evil, and the difference between evil and negative and dark. But that's a whole nother show in itself. So I just start realizing, as you should, is that we need to step it up. That we can be here like it's like day and night and day, night and day, night and day, and I'm always engaged in something different, but there's still an overall Groundhog's Day feel to just the reality and how much we're progressing, because we're fighting this, or well, may not be fighting per se, but we are battling, let's say, I'll use that term, a huge juggernaut as far as this system that is implementing so many different things that we need to overturn and balance out. And it can feel like, well, shoot, how much are our efforts really going into getting this stuff? How much of our efforts right now are balancing this out? And so I decided personally that the next phase, because of this weirdness that I've been noticing going on more and more during these full moons, that I'm going to take things into the next phase, especially in relation to secret energy and the platforms that we've developed. Because, well, of course, I always want to do that, but I just, in my consciousness, the more I feel, how can I explain it? It's like I'm already doing a lot. Like I already have a lot of responsibilities, and I already, there's always things that I deal with every single day, and someone puts on my plate and there's no solutions for it. And then somehow within a few days, I've come up with a solution. But I still feel like I still need to do more. Instead of feeling like, oh, this is too much, because I can't even go into those frequencies, I still feel like, okay, we need to go ahead and make a stronger push for this. So my projection is that I start making more efforts in getting these community modules in place. And what these modules are is they're places where things are developed for the world, but that also allow us to begin to move out of the system of currency, and then also become the bridge between those who are looking to move out of the system of currency, but also being able to sustain themselves. And then also, because I get a lot of young people that contact me that don't really have careers, they don't actually do anything. They didn't go to universities, so they didn't do anything in the stale, brainwashed, curriculum-based system, but they still need to find a way in life. And so if one of us doesn't develop something, and I just feel like that maybe I'm in the best position from everyone that I've met. I mean, I've met people that are millionaires. I've met one lady, she has $400 million. And the lady won't lift a finger to assist what we're doing or what anyone else is doing. And you can go to another person, that person made $120 million, maybe pro NFL player. When you ask them even for, to help put books into prison systems, you don't even get a call back. So when you deal with that kind of thing, which I've been dealing with for 3-4 years after I started trending with the information, so certain people started calling me, they want information for themselves. And you find out that there's someone famous or whatever, they have some cash, but they're not sure. They've never, and I never asked, I just wanted to come to their own mind, but they never for one moment say, hey, well, why don't we take $1 million since I have 300 of them and pour it into what should we do with it? No one comes to me for that. I'm left with what I have as my resources and my intelligence and my knowledge to sit here and pull off something that's going to be epic. And I take that responsibility rather than being discouraged because those that I feel like have the resources don't join into this. Okay. So at no point can I say, well, that's too big of an effort. If I say we want to launch a community that has modules to where we're training people to work in the most innovative fields of intelligence in the world today, developing products that the world can use to make them better. Like even if we just started one simple module to where we started extracting some of these plants that have all these medicinal properties, which they keep bringing out now. It's like, oh, this ashwagandha and this, tomcat ali and all these different elements that have been known for thousands of years, but now all of a sudden people are starting to act like we just found out about them. And then they, the major companies, the GNCs or whatever, they go with their big juggernauts selves and buy up all the stuff. And then now that same company that is tied into Johnson & Johnson and the rest of this whole problem that we're having is now selling us the products that are supposed to be helping us. You see what I mean? So, and then on top of that, and I'm just venting a little bit here, but I'm almost done. Then when you come and you're trying to develop stuff, and then in the conscious community, all you hear from them is, oh, you're trying to make money off of everyone. So this is why it can be perceived as being very difficult at times, but it's also preparing you to be so resilient. So that way, when you finally start hitting the clearance, even then it could seem like a lot of problems are going on for everyone, but it'll be nothing compared to what you've already gone through. And that's what adepthood and maturity is really about. So all I'm saying is that we're going to turn it up. I'm going to make some real efforts here within the next year to get these modules and communities, these modules and community up so that we can start training people. We can start providing and developing products that change the world, and also implementing curriculums for the youth, curriculums from those that are in captive. Like they say, did you visit the captives? Those that are still in captivity, even in their consciousness, even physically, and start developing things and getting them to those places, even if it means that I got to do it myself. That's what you have to begin to accept in your mind. See, what I'm telling you is that I'm just one of your mentors. I'm just developing you into the greatness that you have. And that way you can be of assistance to yourself and to others. I'm not here telling you that you have to follow me, do everything that I do, etc. I'm just giving you a pointer and I'm telling you what I'm experiencing on my path. So just in case you happen to come down that same road or already been there, then you know what you're looking at. And I'm telling you, if you motivate yourself, you don't never have to worry about letting yourself down. But if you use others as a form of motivation, I can guarantee you within a very short period of time that you will be completely depleted of energy, because something will either work through those people or it could be them themselves that begin to basically discourage you from continuing your project and what you intend to do for this world. So that's a real thing. Know that and know to stay strong in this. And then also know that no matter how insurmountable something may seem, if you have enough determination to break down that wall, you can break it down. I've seen mystical things, what they would say is real magic, happen because of the determination that I've had to not accept something that someone tells me is the ultimate conclusion of my reality. So that's it. I wanted to say wholeness and balanced vibration. I want us to work more on this and to keep our minds fortified. And just remember that next week there's no meeting. You will get a notification via Teamwork or when the next meeting is. I want to keep doing this and keep pushing it out as we've been doing for 6 years. Look, I'm 6 years in. I look in the mirror. I actually still look the same way. This is not weathering me. The world is not weathering me in any kind of way. Like, I know that I'm here to exist forever in some shape, form, or fashion. And when you take on that, then you're ready to truly live. So that's it. I wanted to say thank you for, again, tuning in. Also, I did say that we were going to take some time for questions, but because it's already so late, I just recommend that you send those questions into Teamwork, and then that'll allow us to be able to get those questions. So that's it. Let me see here. Yeah. All right. So there it is. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off our mixer. I'll be linking up with people soon. And thanks for tuning in. Spiritech Specialist meeting May 1st. See you soon. Wholeness.